Our double bill continues, boys and girls. This is one that I'm sure many of you won't want to miss. And for those of you who are live with us, welcome to the show. Those listening on replay, thank you for tuning in. This is the debut of our French football show, otherwise known as Le Provence Squad. How about that for an accent? Here we go, Gunners. It's all things William Saliba.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, boys and girls. Welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad with myself and also my podcast brother from another mother. And if you don't know what day it is, then just look at him. Mr. Super Kev, Super Kevin Campbell, welcome back to the show.
Squaddies.
Squaddies.
At ease.
Welcome. At ease.
Evening, Soph. I'm looking forward to this one. Soph, I'm looking forward to this one because you know what? Just like the other day, I could sit back and I could really think about what's being said. And if I've got a question, the finger is going to go up.
Going to go up.
And I'll ask the question.
Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Kris Carpenter from a Bergkamp Wonderland and, of course, the French football Hipster show joining us. This is actually going to be Chris's show going forward. We have created this show just specifically to keep our eye on what's happening with our boy William Saliba, our £27 million investment, who is currently on loan at Marseille. Kris, welcome to the Highbury Squad. How you doing, mate?
Thank you, Soph. Thank you, Kev. I'm doing well. I'm tired and tired and emotional. Does that count? No, I'm fine. I'm all good. So I'm looking forward to be part of the show, and hopefully we'll bring some content for your viewers who may not get to see as much French football as I do, which is kind of quite a lot.
Yes, indeed. And I also wanted to give you a shout out. Look at you here. You just ran a half marathon. The pirate himself, smashing it. Kev, I mean, if I ran a block right now, I think I'd pass out. Huge achievement to run a half marathon, let alone a couple blocks. Well done, Kris. Did you do that for charity?
No, I did. It's the second competitive one I've ever done, and I kind of did it on 1.5 legs because I've been carrying an injury for about 10 weeks or so. And no, it's just all about getting round. In the end, I managed to do it in a PB, which was even more amazing.
Wow!
About 2.5 minutes under what I'd done it before. So it's 1:58:51. And just really good sense of achievement, and I have some fantastic gurning pictures of me crossing the finish line, which I put one on my Instagram, which has caused a lot of amusement in the ABW group, I can tell you so far.
I love it. Listen, that's a huge achievement. Well done to you.
Thank you.
As I said, I couldn't even run a block right now. Right. So going forward, as I said, you guys, Kris is going to be bringing you this show probably once a month where he gives everyone an update on how things are going with William Saliba and how he's faring in France. Kris, where do you want to start? Because, of course, with our own defensive deficiencies and how we've started off this season, it's only natural that Arsenal fans would be asking questions about this young fella. And he looks lean, he looks fit, he looks really cool in that kit as well, by the way. Where do you want to start? The curious question I have is, you know, when you got Chambers and Holding, I think the one thing Arsenal fans are like, you can't tell me that Saliba's not better than these guys. Or Mari, by the way. I'm going to throw him into the mix.
Oh, Mari, yeah, certainly. Pablo Mari, God bless him. I think probably where I would start, to be honest, Sophie, it's a little bit of frustration, to be perfectly honest with you. I have my own theories on why William is not with the group at the moment and not in the squad. I might expand on those a bit later on, but it's just a frustration that we've got one of sort of the most spotlighted or highlighted young defenders in the world game at the moment. He's impressing everybody in Marseille. He's working under a coach who is he's very notorious for his style of play. People talk about Bielsa and how sort of high intensity his football is. I'm going to upset some Leeds fans here. I'm sure there aren't many of those watching. I would argue Sampaoli's football is more heavy duty than Bielsa, simply because Sampaoli, if you haven't seen him on the touchline, is an absolute nutcase. I mean, he is intense, doesn't even begin to cover it. I think he's nicknamed the Pitbull. You'll see him on the touchline in a very tight-fitting always black t-shirt. He's covered in tattoos. He's full skinhead, and he's just bonkers. I mean, he demands a lot of his players. He also plays a formation which Saliba. A lot of people have said to me, "Oh, well, he's played in the back three before." He hasn't played in a sort of a 3-3-2-2 formation, which is what Sampaoli's playing at Marseille. And as I say, I just look at the player in Saliba, and I just feel frustrated, because I'm not saying that he would be the way, the truth, and the light, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't have lost the games we've lost this season with him, because we may well have done. That's just the benefit of hindsight, and it's also not to criticise the players we have got at the club. I still think Chambers and Mari maybe haven't had the best starts of the season, but I think sort of White and Gabriel will be a very good partnership. But I just can't help but look at Saliba and think he would get in this squad. And right now, I think he would get in this team. And Marseille are reaping the rewards, as Nice did last season, as St Etienne did previously, before we both signed him and sent him back on loan. And I'm going to make a bold prediction here, but I think he'll be in the French national squad before the Qatar World Cup. I don't think he'll be in the starting lineup, because Varane and Kimpembe are the main two that Deschamps goes for. But I think Saliba will push in front of some of those very young, talented French centre-backs that are in the world game at the moment. Jules Koundé is in there, but I think Saliba's got every bit as much potential to get in front of him. He's certainly in front of Longley at the moment for me. And his potential is unlimited. And I think we might end up with egg on our faces if we don't make the right decision in the long run.
Wow. That's a big call, Kev, isn't it? He's
not ahead of Longley for Deschamps, is he?
No, that is very true.
That's the difference, you see. So I understand your opinion, but the key is he's got to get in. That's the tough part. And Longley plays at Barcelona, as you know. It's a matter of him playing well enough to pick some of these guys off. But it's always difficult when France have got a set squad, haven't they? It's a talented squad. But all he can do is play well, Kris, isn't it? All he can do is play well. Yeah. He's got age on his side. That's the one thing as well.
100%.
Well, I think, Kris, I think the thing for me is, and I mean, we can't talk about Saliba in some ways without mentioning Guendouzi, just because they're both at Marseille. But if Matteo can make the French squad, Kev, why can't Saliba? Some would argue that is it because there's more opportunities in that position, Kris, and Saliba has more of a challenge to kind of break in. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think to a degree that's true. The one thing that Kev touches on there, and he's absolutely right, is France are very blessed with a lot of very good defenders right now. We mentioned Jules Koundé there, we mentioned Kimpembe and Varane, who are arguably two of certainly in Varane's case, one of the standout defenders in the world game at the moment. Kimpembe is a little, I'm going to be nice to say, erratic in terms of that he's a wholehearted defender, and he's quick across the ground, and he will give you plenty of athletic attributes, but he does have a tendency to drop a few throughout games. His concentration isn't always the best. But when you take those out and then you look at the rest of the squad, I mean, Samuel Umtiti is nowhere near the first French squad at the moment. He was a sort of go-to player previously. Kurt Zuma is another member of the current French national squad who's just gone to West Ham in a fairly pricey deal. I think it was 20-odd million, wasn't it? Chelsea sold him for. It's a fairly big price tag. You've got Nourdine Mukiele, who's predominantly a right-sided centre-back, a right-sided defender, but can play centre-back. And then sort of beyond that, you're looking at Leo Dubois, is more of a right-back, but again, can play in that central role. But realistically, I think if any of Koundé and Kimpembe lose form, And as I say, with Longley, for me, the jury's out on him. I like him as a player. I've liked him sort of before he went to Barcelona. I thought he was very good in France. But he had a very poor Euros, I think it's fair to say. And we all remember that goal where he was out-jumped in the Swiss game. And that was on him, very much on him. It's poor defending. And I just feel that with the right sort of momentum, Saliba can surpass him. Kev's absolutely right. You know, Deschamps has got. He's a very stubborn coach, Deschamps, and he'll make decisions and he will stick with them even if it's not the popular choice. But I just feel that if Saliba continues the progression he's on, it'll be hard to leave him out. And in the case of Guendouzi, to touch on him, it's a very similar situation with him. He's gone to Marseille. He's got his head down. Is he still a spiteful little so-and-so with a questionable, I think attitude is unfair because he's a professional footballer, and Kev will tell you sometimes you need that little bit of edge to make it in the highest levels. But he can be a provocateur, shall we be polite? But again, he's got into that French squad on merit. He's been brilliant for Marseille. He scored a goal a couple of weeks ago in the last game before the international break, and he's there on merit. And I personally disagreed with a lot of Arsenal fans who said Guendouzi didn't really offer anything. People forget he was running our midfield under Unai Emery for a couple of weeks before, sort of everything went off the rails when, and everything changed and Emery went. It was, yes, the Brighton incident didn't help, but realistically, I think we all know it was his refusal to apologise that led to him leaving Arsenal. Personally, I don't think he had anything to apologise for, really. I think the Dubai thing didn't help either. But he's a character that if you manage him correctly, you'll get the best out of him. And that's what's happened at Marseille. And that's why he's got into the French squad.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think one of the issues with Arteta is that we've seen that his man management skills have a lot to be desired. Let's swing back. Let's start at the very beginning before we kind of dive deeper into what his international aspirations or potential can be, Kris. It seems like he's off to a good start. Liga is on the map for so many reasons this season, and one being two words, Lionel Messi or Lionel Messi, however you'd like to pronounce it. Talk to us a little bit about the let's just start with him. How's he doing? Like, just tell us, like, what's going on with him?
As in sort of on the pitch, off the pitch, his general sort of
Let's start with on the pitch, because the off the pitch thing also is very intriguing to us as well, considering what's happened to him over the last 18 months.
Well, on the pitch, as I say, he's settled into this system very well. I've mentioned before, the Sampaoli system is quite unique. It's I suppose on paper you could call it really a 4-2-4, but it's a variation, and typically he has three centre backs, and when they are in position, or when they're in possession of the ball, the two outside centre backs, if you will, drift into the right and left back slots. Saliba has been playing predominantly on as the right hand sided centre back. So if you line up as a three, you've got Bellardi and you've got Luan Perez, who's their other new signing on the left hand side, and Saliba is to the right. In front of him, he's had Cengiz Under, who some Leicester fans may or may not remember from his spell last year, the Turkish winger. And he offers, a little bit of defensive cover, but predominantly he is an attacking, he is the Pepe, if you will, if you look at it in Arsenal terms. He's not a player who's going to track back heavily. He's not a player who's going to offer a huge amount of support to Saliba, which I think is kind of interesting because you usually need a screen if you're going to play a very wide back three. But what Marseille do have in Kamara and Pep Gueye, particularly the main two, they've also got Rongier, is they've got holding midfielders who are quite comfortable drifting out and protecting the fullbacks and then coming in and closing it up when they drop in as a defensive unit. And what's been really interesting for me with Saliba is I've never looked at him and thought he's a guy who could go marauding down the touchline. I've never really thought of him as that kind of centre back. He's showing to me that his natural ability on the ball, which let's not forget was one of the reasons we signed him, it starts so many Marseille attacks. Not just him, to be fair, it's both sides. But they often start with the ball from Steve Mandanda to the centre-back, typically Bellardi, out to either Saliba or the other fullback, Luan Perez, on the other side. And then it goes through midfield, goes down the wings, or then it comes back inside. Saliba's just adjusted sort of faultlessly for me. You know, I mean, yes, he does have some weaknesses. You know, in the air, he's not always the best for a very, very tall lad. Sometimes he is susceptible to the ball over the top.
Is that when it's spontaneous crosses, Kris, or is it set pieces? Because there's a big difference between kind of being caught off the hop and then when a team has. Yeah, can you just talk to us about that?
I would say the former more. I think because he's a big lad, you know, it's only natural that it takes a bit for him to be able to turn and get back in. He is fairly quick for a big guy, but a centre back of that size who's drifted out into a right hand side, it's very easy to switch and, you know, clip it over the top to a nippy winger to run in behind. And there has been a couple of examples of that. I think it was in the St Etienne game. I remember that he was caught out a couple of times. But I think it's important to remember we're not talking about a Lothar Matthäus prime here. You know, we're talking about a young lad who's still got a lot of work to do, a lot of learning to do, and a guy who has come in. And let's not also forget he left a Nice side that were essentially fighting relegation last summer. He was always going to play there. He went into that side alongside Todibo, and they needed defensive cover when they lost Dante, who's the experienced Brazilian centre half. He had to play at Marseille. There was no guarantees he'd walk into that side. They've got experience in the Argentine Gonzalez, who really would start. Spanish Argentine, I should say, dual nationality. But he wasn't guaranteed to walk into that team. But as soon as pre-season came around, he was in the team. He stayed in the team at the start of the season, and I don't think any of Marseille's centre backs are going to displace him. And I love his confidence. And sometimes, there can be the overindulgence. And I've said it on our pod, and I think I might have said it to you, Soph, before. He reminds me of when Rio Ferdinand first broke through at West Ham. You know, very gangly. You know, there are a few raw edges, but that cockiness, that arrogance almost to say, I'll back my ability to bring this ball out of defence, and I'll do what I want to do, and I'll work the way I want to work, and I'll play within the tactics. I'll defend when I've got to defend. But when the ball's at my feet, I'll express myself.
Wow. Kev, sounds like he could start for us on Saturday against Norwich.
Look, let's. Kris, it was a really good summary, to be honest. And look, we know how good he is. He started off as a midfielder. That's why he's so comfortable on the ball. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, it's good to know that he's been flexible, because normally you see him in a back four. Now he's in a back three, and he can play there comfortably. So that's a really good thing for us. But the key to it is he's still so young and he's learning. Now, again, we know he should have been at our football club. We know that. And maybe he should have been making mistakes in our first team, because he can't do any worse than what we've seen. But the decision was made, and it's refreshing to hear that Saliba's doing so well. Even though we're still learning, we know, but it's good to see that he's doing so well.
Yeah, I think they are, Virginia, really interesting insights. And I'm going to give you guys time. There's a lot of questions being fired in right now, especially on, how he would fit in playing with White and Gabriel. Maybe we can get to that eventually. But in terms of their results so far this season, Kris, they're fifth in the league, aren't they? They beat his old club, Saint Etienne. They haven't played the big guns yet. You know, in terms of seeing him play really, really good players, there was this massive argument about whether or not it was right for him to go to Liga. He wanted to go to Liga. He didn't want to stay in the Premier League for his loan spell. And when I asked Kev said, I would rather have seen him stay in the Premier League if he's going to become a player for us, going forward. I know you're very staunch on your defense for Liga, and some people have called it the Farmers League, and I completely think that's, disrespectful in terms of who plays there and the players that have come out of there. But can you talk us through that aspect of the competitiveness, who he's facing, the type of players he's faced, and how that can translate maybe to his loan spell? Because the whole point is him gaining more experience to come back and maybe be a starter for the club.
Yeah, I mean, as far as defending the league goes, I mean, I think anyone is going to defend a league that they follow, sort of to the level I do, put it that way. I watch 4 or 5 games a weekend. On a good weekend, I'm always sort of across all the highlights, and obviously I host a podcast that is French football themed. So of course I'm going to be a little bit biased towards the league that I follow and love watching. But I do agree with you. I think this sort of slur, and it is a slur of Farmers League. I mean, firstly, what does it even mean? Like, I mean, no one can actually sit there and tell you, oh yeah, it's farmers. What does that mean? I've never seen a farmer kick a ball in my life, so I'm not sure where it even comes from. But more to the point, this idea that Liga is just some kind of 99p floater beach ball type of football and nobody's got any talent is an utter nonsense. It's a very different style of football. There is a lot more. Shall we say, sort of defensively set up teams. It's a very physical game over there. There isn't quite as much speed in transition as some of the sort of so-called better leagues. But there are some very good teams, and you only have to look at last season and you see that Lille won the league, and okay, PSG had their irons in other fires, and you could make the argument to say they took their eye off the ball, but it doesn't matter when you look at the trophy. Lille's name is on it. It's not a one-team league. PSG, of course, are going to be favourites this season because of the money they're able to spend and the players they've been able to bring in. But when you look at Marseille and you look at the clubs that Saliba in particular could have gone to, Marseille's a perfect fit. The velodrome on a full velodrome is one of the most hostile atmospheres for me in Europe. It's a club that demands the best from its players. Those supporters are not to be messed with. I mean, anyone that's been to Marseille, any England fans that went over there during the World Cup a few years ago will tell you what Marseille is like. You do not mess with Marseille ultras, and believe you me, if you're on the wrong side of those and you're not putting in the effort on the pitch, they will let you know. He's under pressure to perform there, and so far he has matched those expectations. And again, under the coach, he's asked to do a lot of things and learn a lot of things very quickly, and he's learning them. In terms of the actual sort of competitive nature of the league, you're right, he hasn't, all eyes will be on him when he plays PSG, for example. That's going to be the big fixture everyone's going to look at. But he has been challenged. And as I said, he has made some mistakes in a couple of games. Marseille have scored 8 and conceded 5 this season. They're not flawless. But I feel a little bit dirty even saying this. They're a damn good watch. And they are slowly scrubbing off this tag of being perennial kind of underachievers. They're one of France's great sort of names in French football history. And they are desperately trying to get back into the Champions League and back into the elite. And I think they could potentially challenge for those top 3 spots this season. And if Saliba's in that squad, he's only going to help that.
Kev.
Kris, for me, I already know he can play in France. I know he can play in Liga. He's done it for the last few seasons. So for Arsenal, I would have loved him to have stayed, but if he never stayed, I would have loved him to have gone on loan in the Premier League for 6 months, and we could see him against the opposition that we're going to play against. Because I think that then makes him ready. All the fans could watch him. We could see his progress, and if he's doing well, then we could get him back in January and say, plug him in.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I get it. He can do the job in front, but I already know that. Do you know what I mean? I know he can do the job, and I know he's a fine young player.
But like we always say with the Premier League, sorry, Kris, just before I want to just jump in real quick before you respond to Kev, because we always say, the Premier League's become more competitive year on year on year. And I think Liga has become the same as well. I think it's probably going to be tougher this year for him than it was playing last year, and the expectations, like Kris said, at Marseille. I mean, that punch up the other day, Marseille's a tough city, let alone a football team. They don't suffer falls there. So I think he's under a tremendous amount of pressure to be like.
No one ever said he isn't, Soph. I never once said he's not under pressure. What I'm saying is, we all know he can play and perform in League 1. I'm not saying that he never got stronger. Of course he's got stronger. But every year these leagues get stronger. The key for me is I want him at Arsenal. And if he's going to play at Arsenal, half a season in the Premier League would do him no harm. We get to see him every week. Then we could just plug him in Jan. That's my point.
But
I'm not detracting on France at all. Because I know that. But we see Kolasinac and Holding and Mari, not Mari as much, but Chambers play every week for years. I mean,
you're not convincing him. I think
don't.
I think the argument Kev has is a fair one, and I will say that. And the main three things I would say back to that argument. The first one would be. That a lot of people have the debate about who's better, and this is a slightly flippant point, but it comes around to where we are. A lot of people ask you who's the best footballer, in the world game right now. Is it Messi or Ronaldo? And if anyone says Messi, the first thing that people fire at him is, well, he's only ever done it in Spain. But to me, he's still the greatest player that's ever played the game. And if it's in one league, I don't need to see him do it in the Premier League to be convinced that he's the best player in the world. For me, he's just better than Ronaldo as an all-round footballer. That's just my opinion. But that's a slightly flippant point, but it kind of brings it round to looking at the player. And I agree with what Kev says. Seeing him in the Premier League would be fantastic. But there's two flaws to that issue for me. One is it had to have been the right club in the Premier League, and those offers just didn't come. I don't think he would have learned anything going to Steve Bruce's Newcastle. That's not a disrespect to Steve Bruce. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke, and Joe Willock's done fantastically up there. But I don't want to see Saliba alongside Fabian Schär, with Dubravka behind him playing against Leicester and losing 3-0. I just don't want to see that. And yes, they would have taken him to their hearts up there, but I don't want to see that. If
Chris,
you could have got him,
why wouldn't you want to see that?
I don't think it benefits him to be playing at a sort of a lower end. And I'm sorry, Newcastle fans. I feel like it's a step down. As we said before, whether you like the French league or not, Marseille is a massive club, and the pressure to perform is huge there. Newcastle, even if you talk to their fans who are long-suffering fans, you said to them now, we'll give you 17th place and you stay in the league, and you probably get a new manager. They take that. I think if Saliba had gone to sort of a Leicester or one of our rivals, which we would never have allowed him to go to, then there's that argument. And the other side of it, and this is the human element, I won't go too sort of in depth into this, but a number of people who I respect and trust have said to me in the past, since Saliba's been an Arsenal player, that he has not been treated well since he's come to Arsenal. He's not been man-managed well. He's not been really supported as a young player should be. And if I'm Saliba and, Arteta or Edu comes to me and says, hi, William, here's a situation. We need to go on loan. What would be your preference? I'm saying, I'm going back to France, thanks very much, because I want no part of this. I don't want to be in England. Why should I? I want my choice because I want to play my football for the club that I want to play for. And I think he'll have every right to say that. And that's why I do get a little bit miffed when people say, he chose the easy option. I don't think Marseille is an easy option over Newcastle or Southampton, which were the two that were mainly muted for his services. I think he made the choice that suited him. And I think he probably said to himself, do you know what? I've been mistreated really for 2 years. I've been left on the scrap heap for 2 years after being signed for 27 million quid. All I've wanted at Arsenal was a chance. And the only chance he got was 17 minutes in a Charity Shield and a behind closed doors friendly that no one saw apart from those who claimed he had an awful day. I mean, but
you know what, Chris? But you know what, Chris? Here's my response to that. Because if Saliba wants to play for Arsenal, he looks at who's in front of him, and if he thinks and knows he's better than them, I don't go back to France. Not in a month for Sundays. I go and prove it. And the fact of the matter is, William Saliba can play in France. We know he can. Can he do it in the Premier League? We still don't know. So even if he went to a Newcastle for 6 months, at least then we will see him operate and we'll have no hesitation in plugging him into Arsenal's first team. You want your chance? You got to earn it. And I know that sounds a bit crazy when we look at what we've got at the moment, who's been playing. But the bottom line is a young player who we all want to see him do well. Let's be honest. We don't want him to. We don't never want to see him do bad.
No.
But I think it's that next step where, even if it's a Newcastle, he's going to be under pressure at Newcastle, and it's a different pressure than Marseille. I get that, but we're going to see him have to defend and deal with a lot of these teams who they're going to be under pressure. We're going to get to see the best of him. And if he can do it there, hey, listen, 6 months, January, come back, you can go straight in. We know he can do it. So I get your point, and I just want to add on, there's that a bit of mental part where he's lost family member and stuff like that. Yeah. So the draw is to France. That part, I can't argue with Kris. I can't argue with that.
Let me ask you a question then, Kev. As a former player, if you're in a dressing room as Arsenal's right now, and your manager is under pressure, I don't know whether you experienced this under George's reign at all at any point, but if you know that your manager is under pressure and you're in Saliba's shoes and you're looking at this and you're going, do you know what? I do back myself. I think I am better, but I'm not convinced by this manager. I'm not having this manager. He hasn't treated me particularly well. I'm not really having it. Do you, as a player, would that go through your mind to think, do you know what? I'll actually go and play the football I want to play in the country I want to play, and I'll outlast this manager. And then when he's gone, I'll come back and I'll prove myself because I genuinely think, for example, Unai Emery stays, he doesn't go on loan unless it's a decision that's been taken above Arteta's head, which I don't think it is. I think this is Arteta's decision, and I think Edu's backed him on it. If he's not the manager, I just don't think there's any way an incoming Arsenal manager doesn't have Saliba in that squad over Amari, a Chambers, you know. So how would you see that from a player's perspective, Kev? Would that even enter your mind as a player? I'll outlast this manager.
Well, that's a crazy thing to say. I'll outlast this manager, because one thing you don't know is how long the manager's going to be there. I know there's a hullabaloo for the manager to be gone and we want him out, etc. But what you got to look at, Kris, the owners bypassed 2 opportunities to get experienced managers in, and they brought in Arteta the second time where they overlooked getting the experienced manager and brought in a novice. For me, this is what I would have preferred. I would have preferred Saliba to say, I don't care who the manager is. I know I'm better than him, and I'm going to prove it. Because going back to... Go on.
Go on, Kev. No.
I'm just saying, him going back to France doesn't tell me anything I don't know.
Okay, so Kev, there are a lot of people who agree with you in chat, but there are a lot of people like MK that talk about the arrogance of Premier League fans to insinuate that playing for Newcastle is more valuable than Europa football in a very competitive league, you know, with also Messi and Mbappe. And I think that's a really fantastic point. And Kris kind of alluded to and gave the Newcastle example. He wasn't bagging on Newcastle as a club or as a team, but to be playing European football and to be playing in a league that has some real top tier, you know, players, surely that is huge value in terms of learning your craft and elevating yourself at a young age.
Sophie, I'm not talking about elevating, or I'm talking about him being ready to go and play and start for Arsenal. That's what I'm on about. I know he can play in France. That I already know. So whether it's Messi, Mbappe, he's already played against Mbappe. No,
but what about Europa League? The teams in Europa League that he's going to be facing.
Play in the Europa League. My point is this.
Oh, come on, Kev. Man United couldn't beat Villarreal. We couldn't beat Villarreal in the Europa League. What's that got to do with
what we're talking about?
It's got everything to do with who you're playing against. It's got everything to do with the talent and the players that they face in the competition over a season.
We are in the Premier League. I
completely disagree.
We are in the Premier League. And I want to see...
European football doesn't count.
I want to see Saliba ready for the Premier League. That's what I want. Now, him playing in France and the Europa League doesn't mean for the eye test that he can play in the Premier League. I think he's been on loan 2 years in Ligue 1. So if he gets 6 months in the Premier League, then as far as I'm concerned, we can put him in our team. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's not going to get challenged in Europa. I'm not saying Ligue 1's a bad league. No, I never said that one bit. I want him ready for Arsenal. He's our player.
I think Terence makes a really good point, and that he's literally read my mind as he put that question up. Saliba's ready for Arsenal, Arsenal aren't ready for Saliba. I think that's an excellent point because, and I agree with what Kev is saying, and I totally agree with the Premier League readiness. It's not Saliba's choice to be on loan right now, in my opinion. Yes, it's his choice to be at Marseille. Yes, it's his choice to be playing for the team he's playing for. If you said to him at the start of the season, before Ben White, and we said, and Arteta said, you're going to be part of this squad, which, I mean, he did to the press. I appreciate that was a little bit of a double bluff. I think Saliba would quite happily back himself against those centre-backs right now. And I think he'd quite happily say, I'd love to be at Arsenal right now. Because in every interview he's always said that. He's always said, he sees himself as a future Arsenal player.
So but he's also... stay and fight, Chris? Why didn't he stay and fight?
I didn't think he was given the choice.
Yourself, here's one thing I know. If you back your talent against what's in that dressing room, you stay and fight. Even
if you're told your fifth choice?
It don't matter because you're better than them. You have to back yourself.
What experience did Fofana have before playing for Leicester City? And shining last season. Fofana.
We're talking about Saliba at Arsenal.
Don't do that.
Sophie. No, hold on, Sophie. Fofana is totally different. He's a Leicester player. He's got nothing to do with this situation at Arsenal. It's not the same. It is not the same.
Leicester suffered an injury. Fofana got his chance. He had never kicked the ball in the Premier League. And let's say that when he got injured last season, they'll miss him. He became very important to that team. He never played a Premier League competitive match. And they were teammates at Saint Etienne. Please answer the question.
Prove, Sophie?
It proves that your point isn't valid because you're not...
How?
Because you're saying that you would rather him be playing in the Premier League or in the Championship. The dude's playing Europa League football.
No, I didn't say Championship.
His teammate,
I did not mention Championship.
His former teammate was his sidekick, and Saliba was the bigger star, right? In the end, they both went for similar money. Fofana was a star for Leicester City, never played in the Premier League, Kev, and they were playing as a tandem, as a team.
Yeah, but Sophie, Fofana only got in because there was an injury.
That's what I said, but he took his chance.
Yeah, but listen to what I'm saying. Saliba can't get in the team if he's not at the club.
They didn't want him at the club, Kevin. That's why he left.
My point was, if he stayed and fought for a place, why can't you hear what I'm saying?
Why can't you hear what Kris was saying? He was never given the opportunity.
Sophie, you're missing my point.
You're missing my point.
I'm not missing your point. If there's injuries at Arsenal and Saliba's there, that's the only way he can get a chance. It's the only way.
If he stays, Kev, here's the flip side to that argument. Okay, Arteta comes to him and he says, "I want you as part of this squad. You're my fourth choice centre back. I can't promise that you're going to get in ahead of Pablo Mari," which, quite frankly, I'd leave the club if somebody said that to me anyway. But that's another story. Tongue in cheek. If your manager comes to you and he says to you, "You'll be fourth choice. You're going to have to wait your chance. You're going to have to get your opportunity, and when you get your opportunity, you're going to take it," and then in the very next breath doesn't give him any opportunities.
No, but hold on. How can you say don't give him any opportunities? We're 3 games. We're 3 games in.
But he's been on loan for 18 months. He's not been
given a 5-year contract.
He's been on loan 2 years.
He's got 3 years left on a 5-year contract, and the dude's been given 17 minutes to play football.
You don't spend.
So okay, Sophie. So I'm going to get back to my point, which I originally said. For God's sake, If he knows he's better than what's in front of him, you stay and you prove it.
He didn't want Kris, please, that takeover. They didn't even register him.
No. They didn't want to give him. Arteta basically from everything that's come from the French side and from Saliba's camp is that Arteta was given or gave him assurances that he would be given a chance in pre-season this season. That didn't happen. He was then pushed to the side and not communicated with for around about 6 weeks. It was then decided by the hierarchy that he was going to go on loan. Arsenal were pushing for him to go on loan to the Premier League without even consulting Saliba's people. Saliba was then given the option, right, you've got the Premier League, or essentially if he refused to go to a Premier League club, we had to get him on loan because we had to protect his value, which is why he got his move back to France. And the bottom line is, right at the moment, Arteta doesn't fancy him and doesn't want to play him. And if the player stays, and don't get me wrong, I get your point, Kev, I genuinely do. If that player of his age stays at Arsenal as fourth choice, where's his ambition? Oh, I'm just going to sit here and wait and hope for the best. The kid wants to play.
Chris.
You can't just sit there for 2, 3, 4 years and hope you'll get a chance.
Chris, but this is exactly my point. And this is what you two are missing. It's the Premier League. Arsenal want to send him on loan in the Premier League. I know he can do the business in France. If he does the business, let's just say he went on loan to Newcastle and done well at Newcastle. What do you reckon the clamour would be for Saliba to come back to Arsenal? That's my point. My point is him going back to France, to Marseille, which is an absolutely wonderful club, steeped in history, I get that. But I know he can play there. I want to see him do the business in the Premier League. That's what I want.
Same.
And even if it is for a Newcastle, even if it is for a Newcastle, then I know he could do it at Arsenal.
I just want to see him in an Arsenal shirt, Kev. I take that point. I don't want to see him at any other club in England than Arsenal. And if he comes in at Arsenal and he fails, fair enough. You know, he wouldn't be the first. He won't be the last. And, you know, there are players that have come into sides with far bigger reputations than him that have massively failed. You cannot, not you personally, but Arsenal fans in general cannot tell me that we have got 2 or 3 better centre-backs right now in the club than him. You just can't.
Chris, I agree. I'm not saying that he's not, but you just want to see him play. You have to be there to get the opportunity. Is my point.
Yeah, and I think he would be under another coach.
Yes, Sophie.
Kevin. They didn't register him. He didn't want him there. He hardly spoke to the guy. Okay, he's chosen to play Pablo Mari and Holding. It's a £27 million investment. He is playing alongside talented players in a good team for a historical club. He's playing in a league that has Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, and plenty of others. He's going to be playing Europa League football. If he goes on and wins the Europa League with Marseille, does that not make him good enough to come back into the Premier League and play for the Arsenal if he didn't go on loan to Newcastle or Crystal Palace?
Sophie, the point is he still hasn't played a minute in the Premier League.
Again, I point to the evidence. Exhibit A, neither did Fofana, his former teammate.
But Fofana got in because of injury because he was there.
And like Chris said on Exhibit B, on Exhibit B, we've had injuries, and are you telling me that Saliba isn't better than Holding or Chambers or Mari?
I've already agreed with that. I don't know why you're saying that to me when I've already said yes, he is. But he won't get a chance if he's not at the club.
He won't get a chance under Arteta.
All right, time out. The manager doesn't like him. There you go.
I just don't think he does. I think he has an issue, in my opinion, with the personality Saliba has. Look at the video. Look at the video that I think it was Charles Watts posted. Was it Chris Wheatley posted? Saliba leading the St Etienne team in post-match game. Arteta doesn't. I just don't think he likes the guy. I don't think he likes the way he is and the way he comes across. And maybe he's in a self-confidence. Maybe he just doesn't like French players. I'm joking, but there's clearly a disconnect. No, he might not.
He might not.
He doesn't have faith in him, and he went out and bought that defense now. Whether you like Arteta, whether you don't, and I'm on the fence. Either way, I'm very much on the fence. That whole defense is now Arteta's, and if that defense fails, that's on him. And I will not have any Arsenal fan come to me and say to me, "Oh yeah, well he still needs to bring in bollocks." No, I'm sorry, but he's got that is his defense now.
Hang on, yeah, no, you are 100% right, 100% right. It is his, but here's the thing for me, as always. If you want to play for Arsenal Football Club, there has to be some sacrifice when you're a young player.
That's fair.
That's all I'm saying, Chris. I'm not saying he's not talented. He's better than a lot of them we got. 100%.
Yeah.
But if you want to play for the Arsenal, put it on the line. So the manager, this is his career.
How can you say that when the manager treats players differently? When he ostracizes players and poorly manages players.
Yeah, well, Sophie, bad things happen. But if you back yourself, he would get his chance, because you can't tell me he looks at Chambers and these guys in training and he thinks he's not better than them.
Oh, and then the manager picks them every week. And then Arteta picks them every week, Kevin.
Yeah, but that's why, Sophie, you've got to be there.
We don't have to be there to know that he
has to be there. He has to be there when it messes up, because it will mess up, and it has messed up, is my point. That's all. They will mess up because they're not good enough. You know it, I know it, Chris knows
I know. We've got 5 more minutes here. This is a cracking season premiere of Le Provence Squad.
What, Chris?
Are you glad you came?
Chris? Oh, tell you what.
Kevin,
what a
start. Chris, there's been a lot of questions about MK. Put your question back up. There's so many people in chat. It's all kicking off. A question about him playing with, if it's going to be like a Gabriel or a Ben White, and we don't really know, but they're asking, based on the manager we have, based on, we can loosely say, I'm not being facetious here, the system he plays.
The process.
How he would fit in as, what side and how, and because people say Ben White's weak in the air, Gabriel's strong in the air, Ben White's a great ball carrier. Can you just talk us through that a little bit before we duck out?
Well, I feel like we've kind of bought the player in Tomiyasu that Saliba would have been if he'd been at Arsenal. That's the irony of all this, because we clearly rely on Kieran Tierney heavily down the left hand side as our attacking fullback. If it was me personally, I like a team with 2 attacking fullbacks, because I'm kind of balls to the wall. I like it all out, and have 2 centre backs that are willing to cover over into the fullback positions to allow your fullbacks to bomb on. So I personally would have gone for a more natural fullback. In Tomiyasu, you've got the kind of the hybrid, the guy who can play centre, in my opinion, and I stand by this. He's a better centre back than he ever is going to be a right back, but I'll reserve judgment. That's just based on what I've seen of him at Bologna. But if he ends up being the defensive right back who can sort of come into the central defence of a 3, that's exactly what Saliba's doing at Marseille, and albeit a different system, in a system that presses. I don't know. Do you remember pressing? We don't do that anymore. But yeah, he would have fit that role. And I think the big question mark with Saliba is going to be, can he play in a 2? And that's a big question mark right now, because he's done it in the 2 for Nice. Him and Todibo were fantastic, but his best football has been in the 3. There's no denying that. And that will be an interesting development. But again, we're talking about a player who's got a lot of years ahead of him to develop and become more experienced. We've bought Ben White for 50 million, who's played in the back 3 for a lot of his career. whether that be at Leeds or Brighton. He's played in the back three a lot of the time. And we've brought him in and said we want to play him in a 2. And already we've now signed a player because we're probably going to go back to a 3 to accommodate him. We've bought Tomiyasu because he complements Ben White really well. That's if you believe what's been said. So for me, Saliba would have been a perfect person to slot in. Gabriel, White and Saliba would have been a brilliant 3, particularly if you had an attacking right back to go alongside Tierney on the other side. But if he's gonna come back, realistically, it's going to be a 2. How many teams in the Premier League play with a back 3? I can't actually think of any. Chelsea have done it, Liverpool have done it, but I can't think of too many that actually set up that way. So he's going to have to adapt to playing centrally. And MK's question in the chat there as well is a good one. Can he play on the left? He's predominantly a right-sided centre back, I would say. Yeah, he's not going to be suited to a left-sided. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Kris, I agree with you. I agree. Saliba, White, and Gabriel as a back 3. You've got the 2 big guard dogs in Gabriel and Saliba, big, can attack it, aggressive, and you got Ben White, who's the ball player, and then all of them have got ability on the ball. I think that's perfect for us.
Yep, especially if you imagine if you added a Lamptey or an Aarons, an attacking wing back on the other side to complement Tierney. I mean, you'd have it all, I think. But
we've got Tomiyasu. Don't worry about that. I'm telling you, don't.
And he's a good signing.
20 million, he's all right. Yeah. Don't worry about that. Give him a chance. I'll tell you.
He's a decent pickup. Yeah, he's just not the style I'd have gone for, but he is a decent pickup, 100%.
Thing is, what he is, Kris, he can defend.
Yeah. Which ultimately you want your defenders to do.
Yeah. You want your defenders to defend.
You do.
We need that. Wow. Absolutely brilliant stuff. We could go on and on, you guys, but we're going to leave it there and leave you panting for more. Kris, it might be that we have to do, maybe one every 3 weeks, not every 4 weeks on this one.
Don't keep me waiting, Kris.
Marseille Monaco is this, I believe it's this Saturday. So if you want a game to watch, that will be the one to watch in Ligue 1 this weekend for your it's actually Saturday night at 8 o'clock UK time, and I believe it's on BT Sport. So if you want to see a decent side and some decent competition for Saliba away from home, there's your game.
Brilliant.
Taib, Kris will be pretty much hosting this show a lot going forward as well this season too, and he's brilliant at his French football, superb stuff, absolutely love. Kris, we call you the French football connoisseur. I know you like to be known as the pirate or the hipster, but here you're our connoisseur, and you will definitely get more of Kris. Been a big hit tonight. Everyone was just waiting for you to pull a Josh, because when Josh was on the other night, he said he would sell party. So you haven't dropped that kind of a clanger. But yeah.
He got me and brilliant. You going. That's a good thing. Kris got me and you at it. Yeah.
Anyone knows Josh is a massive fraud. It's fine. I love you, Josh.
He's a good lad,
Kris,
Josh.
When's the big game against PSG? How long do we have to wait for that one? Do you know?
Oh, you've caught me on the hop there. I can tell you. They play them in Marseille PSG at the Velodrome is the 23rd of October. So a day before Arsenal play Villa, I think, if I'm right in saying. So yeah, 23rd of October.
I'm sure that might be on TV.
That'll be the Saturday night game on BT, 100%. Or it'll probably be a Sunday game. They might move it, but that will be on TV, 100%.
Yeah,
brilliant stuff. And our resident Leicester City fans also enjoyed the show. Kris, tell everyone where he can find you.
If people want to follow me, then feel free. It is at KC_runs on Twitter. Same handle on Instagram if you like pictures of cats and running and seaside views, sunsets, etc. But yeah, for the football, it's definitely Twitter.
I got to say, I can't wait for Saliba versus Messi. I don't know who we would have been playing at Newcastle, but maybe, Lukaku, I guess. But sorry, Kev, I just, you know me, I can't just, Kev? You all right?
I'm there. Of course I am, yeah.
Kev, take us out.
All right, listen, Kris, thanks for coming on. And listen, I thought your roundup and everything on Saliba was fantastic. Really insightful. Sophie, host with the most, as always, giving me pelters. And my feet are still burning, Sophie. I don't know. Have you been holding my feet to the fire again today?
I don't know what it is about this week, but we're not agreeing very much. So it's okay, though. It's all
well,
good.
You know what? hopefully it's the lull before the storm at the weekend. And obviously the squaddies. Always thank you for joining us every single day, every single time. And all I could say is up the Arsenal, watch Saliba, and I salute you.
Salute you. We'll be back tomorrow with Kevin Says.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.